Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's vOLTHA TST call. Thanks for joining. As usual, the call is public and recorded and will be shared on YouTube, so please be mindful of the comments you make during the call. First of all, today I just want to talk about a little bit regarding the ATCD Bitnami chart and some of the issues that we were seeing at scale. A huge thanks to Ken, Girish, Matteo that looked into this, and there were a few things that we tried. We are really talking about the 2LTs, 16 pawn ports, 32 unused pair pawn port job for AT&T, and we have seen many timeouts and many issues in installing the flows for the subscribers. So Ken implemented a retry mechanism for both the OpenOLT and the core. And Girish implemented a write-through cache for the OpenOLT adapter along the lines of what is implemented in the core. With increased timeout to 30 seconds in both the core and the OpenOLT, we see some slightly better results, even though we are not really passing all the time. But I'll leave the floor open to both Ken and Girish if you guys want to make any comments about this, any thoughts that you want to bring further.
Yes, so a small correction. The write-through cache is in the vOLTHA libgo library.
Oh, yeah.
Not in the OpenOLT adapter. It's basically in the ATCD client.
Okay, so this is actually being used in all of the elements that use the vOLTHA libgo.
Yeah, right now it's made configurable. So only the adapter components, OpenOLT adapter components, that's the resource manager, tech profile, library, and the OpenOLT adapter use it. The read-write core does not use this write-through cache yet. So one issue with that was I implemented write-through cache on the latest version of the vOLTHA libgo, which is 4.0.2. But read-write core seems to be in a 3. Some x.y version, so it was not direct to integrate that functionality. So I did that only for the adapter, OpenOLT adapter components.
Okay.
But I think it would help to. It's actually easy to, backport this support to an older version of vOLTHA libgo and just build a custom image of the read-write core to see if it makes any difference in performance.
Is there any reason not to update the read-write core to the latest version?
I don't think so. I think I did see some patch on Git that tried to. I'm not sure if I remember it correctly, but I don't know. Probably is Ken on the call?
Yeah, I'm here. I think it was part of one of the patches that I don't know if Maninder or Himani was working on. I'll check with them because I think it was in the work. But if it's not, then we'll have to do that.
Is it worth doing on a separate patch independent of anything else? Just make the upgrade to whatever the latest version is, so anybody else can actually work on it?
Yeah, I think that should be the approach.
Okay. Do you mind either assigning it to somebody or taking care of it, Ken?
Yeah. I'll see what Maninder and Himani has been doing on those things, and then I'll get back to you.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, we still need to investigate because sometimes the test does fail. So
Yeah, I was seeing a few passes today with the timeout set to 30 seconds, and Ken was commenting that it might not actually just be a TCD related. It might be that we are seeing some slowness in other parts of the system. It could be. I'm just wondering why we haven't seen that before.
Well, at this time we're doing just the only difference with Bitnami is like everything is persistent now compared to before. So the 30 seconds timeout, that's a long. To think
Okay.
of only that HCD is causing that level of slowness. I know there was an issue with HCD where when you do read, and if you do read in a larger block, it actually blocks many of the writes. But I believe the image that we're using now has that fix, so that shouldn't be the case. The other thing that I was thinking of was I don't know if you get any metrics from the I/O, from the disk I/O, and also on network I/O, because it's HCD needs all those instances needs to communicate among each other before they write anything. So I don't know if we are blocked by network I/O or it's actually a disk I/O issue.
So
But
the disk metrics, I do actually have those. And if you check the wall sync metric and the bucket duration, bucket commit duration, we do see a lot of high time for some commits. Let me bring those up. For the metrics, for the network metrics, those I have not implemented. So those I need to do. I have not checked, although it's an internal network just within ONF. They're connected to a dedicated top of rack switch. It shouldn't be really an issue, but I can add the metrics for the network and just see what that brings up. In relation to the metrics that I was talking about for the disk, they're always available here if you pick this the scale job and the experimental one, which is the one we're using, and get one of the jobs, build artifacts, and in the etcd metrics, you can see the write time for the backend, this one, and the wall time sync time bucket. These show how many elements took a certain amount of time. So this is 1 millisecond. It's 6 commits took less than 1 millisecond. But if you scroll down, there are some that take like a long time, a very long time.
yeah, that's bad. One thing also I mentioned was it would be nice to have the NTP, all those nodes be time synced.
Yes.
Because actually use the RAF protocol, so for them to sync among each other, a lot of it is based on time. So I'm not saying this will solve the problem, but I think it will help to have all the nodes in this time sync.
I'll double check if they are not. I'll sync them today.
Yeah, because NCD was complaining that there was more than a second difference between nodes. So I don't know to what extent it's relevant, but at least just double check to make sure NTP is there.
Yeah, I can sync them. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so I guess that we can take care of some of these elements, double check some of these things, and we'll see how this behaves. And I guess, as Girish said, it needs more investigation. So we really don't have any update as of right now, except the fact that these things we talked about. So that's kind of it. Anything else that you guys wanted to add?
I am wondering if the machines in operating systems in the ONF is installed on top of virtual machines or directly onto the bare metals.
It's bare metal, certainly.
Okay.
It's three actually fairly powerful servers that we use for this, and it's a fairly hefty setup, and it's three physical servers.
Yeah, so this is three machine with 128 gig of RAM each and 38 core each. 32 cores, sorry. And they are connected via 10G link directly to the same switch. So I don't think there will be any network delay, but it's worth to check.
And the disks are SSDs, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention that I did some experimentation with a tool that was suggested by the etcd community to check the speed of the disk if it was acceptable by etcd itself. And it seems that it's totally fine because it was required that the 99th percentile of write to disk was less than a certain amount of milliseconds, and that amount was perfectly fine. I can share how I did this test if anybody's interested. It's a very simple command that you run and just writes stuff and checks.
For the network I/O, I found a Calico parameter that may increase the network performance. In default, Calico uses overlay networking, but we don't need overlay networking between the machines. So I can send the parameter. So maybe it's increase the network I/O. I see. It's gonna be useful, I think, if there's a problem with the network I/O.
Yeah, that would be great, Serpent. Please do send it over. If you do have that parameter, it would be great if you could just send it to me or Theo or Ken or anybody of us, so we can try it on the experimental job.
And one more thing. Is it possible to use more than one etcd client to access to etcd? Because if we increase the number of etcd clients, the performance probably would be increased.
It's baked in the code, so it's when it's created a client, and then that's how it's being used. I think it's quite some change in the code to create a different client to go to different places. One of the options would be to have another etcd cluster and try that out. So I don't know how that can work, because the etcd itself is there are ports to listen to or to talk to in many of those vOLTHA components is configurable. So it may be easier to have another etcd cluster and to see if there's any difference there, rather than go and change the client in the code. I'm not saying that's it's not a good option. It's just like it's a lot of changes in the code.
So I think at least the OpenVOLT adapter already uses multiple clients.
I don't know. I'm not sure of that.
So maybe Garish knows more, but I think in the patch that was using the read-through cache for the tech profile and the resource manager, I saw that it was instantiating the client multiple times.
What was the question? Sorry, I missed. So the tech profile and resource manager and adapter each use their own etcd client.
So we have 3 etcd clients then, 3 different threads. accessing to the etcd, right?
Yes. Yeah, because I mean they are independent components, you could say. So yeah, I mean you could pass the same client to all the components and use it, but yeah, right now they use different. They instantiate their own instance of the client.
Okay, I guess let's start with porting the Volta core to the newest version of the Volta libgo. So then Girish can include its check, its write through cache in there and see if that helps too. And I will add the network IO metrics to the job. Serpent, again, please, if you send me that parameter, we can try it out. And Theo, if you can check the time sync of the cluster, and maybe if we can implement some automatic time syncing between the nodes, that could also
Yeah,
be...
so the thing I've done on the other cluster was to deploy a time server on one of the server and get the other two nodes to read the time from that server. And it's a really simple thing to do. It'll take me like 5 minutes.
Sounds
Just
good,
didn't
thanks.
realize they were out of sync.
Sounds good, thanks, Theo. That's appreciated. Okay, and then if all of this doesn't work, or at least we don't see valuable improvements, I think we can try to cluster. There is another thing that we discussed internally within ONF, is that there are a few places in the code where it seems that we are accessing things in a very heavy way, in the sense that, for example, in the get child devices method, we do access to get a child device, we kind of like do 2 or 3 reads of the whole structure of the nodes of the renews from the store. That could be a little, at least in our opinion, a little too much. One thing that we talked about, and it could be another possibility if these things don't pan out, is to store the objects with a reproducible key. For example, made out of a few objects, and through that reproducible key, you could access the object directly. Again, this would require some changes. It would not be a straightforward, immediate thing, but it could, I think, help us get a better performance out of the key value store, which is a TCD. So that's something else that we might think of. If this doesn't work, we might think about it in 2.7.
So basically, we are storing all the devices by ID in the key value store, but the ID is self-generated, and we cannot use that to query the devices. Most often, we query the device by serial number, and so we were thinking that storing the device using the serial number as a key could reduce the amount of queries we need to do to retrieve a single device.
That's a possibility. Just keep in mind, though, that the get child device, for example, it reads everything from memory because all the data is in memory. So there's not supposed to be any read from the KV store at that point in time. If there is, then that's a bug.
Okay. Perfect. That's something we can look at. Theo, is there anything else on this topic before we move forward?
Not on my side.
Just one thing, like I know we have run all those tests with a certain numbers of OLTs when you respond points and everything. Can we run them with a lesser set of when you spawn pods and see at what point the system start to break? Like we still with this 10-second timeout instead of increasing the timeout.
Yeah, we can
Sure,
definitely.
we can do that, Ken. That's no problem. I mean, if you want, it's very, very simple to do. Even when you have some time and you see that this is not used. So right now, this experimental job is running on a different cluster than all of the other scale metrics. The cluster power is this powerful, same as the other one. So we have consistent results. But this one can be run independently of all the other ones that you see here. So what you can do is just go in here, log in,
Okay.
and
Yeah. Okay, fine.
after you log in, you build with parameters, and you just change them here.
Okay.
Say one OLT, for example, things like that. And you can like leave the extra helm flags out to change the images and just do what's best in for your test. Just you can do this. Just go ahead. Maybe in your day, maybe coordinate with Matteo, and in your morning, maybe coordinate with me because I'm using it myself. But in any case, it's
sure.
doable to this.
Yeah, I don't anticipate to use it much today. So.
Okay. Yeah, but feel free to use anything. I'm probably gonna log off in a couple of hours. So.
Yeah, anyway, the only two jobs running on that cluster are the one that contain experimental in the name. That are the two ones we're using to debug things. That way we leave the all the jobs on master running since we're coming close to the release.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Okay, sounds good. Matteo, do you want to give us an update on the multi-stack?
Yeah, so we don't have scheduled jobs yet because we are still tracking down a couple issues, but hopefully they'll be done sometime next week, given that this will be a fairly short week. There are two patches to be merged. One is in vOLTHA, one in the docs. There is actually another one in vOLTHA system test because the ID of the BBC MOLTs will change to include the vOLTHA stack ID. I'm still working on the test one because I think yesterday the test uncovered an issue that I haven't noticed before. And that happens even with a single stack. But as soon as you change the default topic name, something in the OMCI exchange seem not to be working, or at least something in the OpenONU adapter, because the device reason never gets updated for the flows when they are pushed. So I'm still tracking that down, but that's something we need to figure out before having full confidence in the multi-stack. And once I'm confident that they'll be working, I'll also want to schedule at least one job on hardware that doesn't use the default topic name. Has anyone ever tried that?
Not that I know of.
With the hardware, I didn't. With BBSIM, yes, I tried.
Yeah, so with BBSIM, it seems like things are working. Because BBSIM doesn't really care too much about OMCI, except responding back to the adapter. But yesterday the test brought to light this thing that the reason is not updated in the correct way, and I think that is hiding something that will potentially break an hardware.
But we have been testing for a while without using the default topic with the hardware, with single OLT. I didn't see any difference problem other than the I pushed the patch about the topic names, and I think you merged it, right?
Yeah, that has been merged.
Okay.
Yeah, so I found this out yesterday in the late afternoon, and my brain was not in tip-top shape. So I'll get back to it today. Hopefully, with a fresh mind, I'll figure out something.
And Theo, would you mind checking if the OpenONU Go suffers from the same issue while you have it in your hands, I guess?
Yep. Yeah, I can do that.
Thanks. Okay. Any other question on the multi-stack?
Oh, one thing that I haven't mentioned is that what we have seen from the preliminary runs on the experimental job is that with the Deutsche Telekom workflow, we are able to scale up to 4 stacks for a total of 4,096 ONUs. And with the AT&T workflow, we are able to scale up to 3 stacks. And that means 3,074 ONUs. I haven't tried with the Turk Telecom yet, but I think it'd be somewhere in the ballpark of the AT&T job. Once we get past a certain amount of ONUs, seems like things stop working. My feeling is that may be related to the default size of the TCD, but I may be wrong. I haven't debugged that yet. I wanted to give priority to make sure that even a single stack with not the full topic name correctly works in every scenario.
Okay, thanks, Theo. Any question, any topic, any other element on this? Okay. If not, let me give everybody an update also on the multi-OLT on a single stack on hardware. We're now running, thanks to Suchitra and Girish and a little bit of work from myself, we're now running a multi-OLT job in Berlin, meaning that one vOLTHA stack actually controls 2 physical OLTs with, as of right now, 5 ONUs connected to them. And the test actually brings up both the OLTs and runs the full suite of tests for both the OLTs. So there are a few kinks here and there that we still need to solve. But the good news is that most tests, actually 20 out of 23 for the Deutsche Telekom workflow, actually do pass over 2 OLTs. And that is pretty good, I think. It's a pretty good step, meaning that even with hardware and the full physical setup, we are actually capable of handling multi-OLT setups. So that's just an update for everybody. So it's pretty good. Any questions? Okay. Then there's a few things that I would like to put in the pipeline for the release. A reminder to everybody that the code freeze is on the 12th of December. And on that day, we will not accept any more code changes that are not bug fixes or system test changes, with the actual release happening on the 12th. We're still in the process of finalizing the decision to which adapter is going to be used as a default for the vOLTHA deployments. The Go adapter is looking very strong. We merged multi-tcon support thanks to Girish this week. It's actually very good progress. Myself and Odzge from Netsia are working on multicast. We do have a preliminary patch that should be working. I updated it today, and I know I've spoken with Girish, and he's going to do some testing during the day in Pacific time frame. And after the multicast, the other big missing feature is the delete of the tech profile. But I spoke today with Mikael from Adcom, and he's also in pretty good shape for that. He's working on it, and he seems to have made some very good progress on it. So I think we should be able to finalize all the features in this week. And next week we can make a few tests, run suites in all of the hardware setups too, and then have a final decision most likely by Friday, the 4th of December. One thing to note is that we are actually already running the Turk Telekom, AT&T, and Deutsche Telekom scale testing with the OpenONU Go adapter, and those are passing fine with just one instance. The update that I gave last week was not including the Turk Telekom workflow because that did not have multi-tcon support. Since we merged the multi-tcon support, we actually added that, and it's now running on the cluster. So that's I think that's a very good news. And the only remaining test that we want to do and that we have never done is the Turk Telekom hardware test, meaning actually have the Turk Telekom workflow deployed on a physical OLT and test VoIP, VOD, and HSIA with the Turk Telekom workflow to make sure that everything works with that adapter. Any questions? No? Okay, then last thing that I wanted to talk to everybody about is a Jira review. So I spent some time in the past week and a little bit today going through the open Jira stories. There is a filter that I created, which is this one, and just vOLTHA 2.6 and the to-do or in progress stories. And I would really like for each and every one of us to go through these things and make some updates to their stories, because I already see that some of them are stale, meaning that they're actually completed, but I don't want to go ahead and close them myself. I would like the owner to close them. And some of them, I do believe that they're not going to make it into 2.6. For example, just one comes to mind, 3268. It's not going to make it into 2.6. So I would rather not spend the time altogether, but each and every one of us should take 10-15 minutes before next week's TST and update the stories that are in here with the current status. And if you're not going to work on them in 2.6, or you know it's not going to make it into the code in 2.6, please do move it to future. And in this way, we're going to have a final list for the release, and we know what we are missing for the actual code freeze and the actual tests. Just as a reminder, bugs can go in after code freeze, but not stories or tasks. So a huge ask to everybody. I know this is not like the most interesting thing ever, but please do spend some time updating your stories. There are currently 58 stories still in progress or in to do. Either the assigned person or the reporter should take care of them. Like, what happened to this? And it's perfectly fine if they are still in progress. We still do have time, but please do make sure that or at least up to date with the most information you have about it. Okay, so that's all I had for today's TST. I already know that the next week we're going to have a demonstration of device management interface metrics on BBSIM from Amit Ghosh. We already have a patch for it. It's going to be merged, and we're going to have a demonstration and possibly also with some tests that Uwe from Antran is working on. Does anybody have any other topic for today?
Just a quick question, Andrea. For the filter you mentioned,
Yes.
is it shared somewhere? Or is that filter in the document?
Oh, there is a Jira story here. There is a Jira link here. I guess you can access it.
Okay, yes, yeah, my bad.
If not, I can just also, if there is any issue, I can just copy the Jira query here.
No, the link should be fine. I hadn't noticed it before. My bad.
No, that's fine. But again, if anybody the link doesn't work, just use the Jira story there, the Jira query there, the string that I posted, and you should be able to see all the stories. Okay. Any other question or topic that you guys wanted to discuss before we close the meeting?
I want to go back to the etcd discussion.
Sure,
with a question. Do we really need to persist the etcd data? Because etcd is already working in high availability mode, and if we lost all of the nodes at the same time, then I don't think it is possible to return back to a state, good known state from an etcd backup, because ONOS doesn't know the flows and we don't replay the flows to the ONOS back. So
sorry.
I've been thinking lately, yeah.
Sorry, I missed the part. What's the relationship with ONOS? ONOS has a separate store, which is Atomic, so I didn't get what the relationship with that was.
So in case we lost, let's say we lost all of the nodes at the same time, okay?
Yes.
So we also lost ONOS too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we have to set up everything from scratch.
Yes and no. The idea is that we would turn on persistency also for atomics.
Yeah, I think second point is either we persist the data for everything or we don't. It doesn't make sense to persist them only for one component.
To that I agree. The idea is that this work that we're doing with the TCD is just one element of the bigger story of persisting everything, as you say, Matteo.
I think Segat has a good point here, in the sense of instead of thinking of everything being persistent, is there transient state that doesn't really make sense to be stored in etcd? For example, let's take the flows. Do we really need to store the flows in etcd? Like if, let's say, any of those component goes down and comes back up, and they can't get flows from the etcd, then they will be synced up with ONOS. There would be a latency, obviously, with that, but what's the cost of that?
So one of the reasons that I personally know of why we decided to persist like flows in a TCD and other things in a TCD is because after a restart of let's say the OpenOLT adapter, it just fetches the data that it knew that it needs from etcd if present. So that is the reason I know of why we're doing this, at least from my limited.
And
Well,
Andre, I don't
yeah.
think anyone is arguing against using etcd at all. It's just saying that, okay, if we lose all the 3 instances of etcd, it means that the entire cluster has gone down. It means we lost everything. At that point, it may just be faster to bring up the system from scratch than try to recover it. I think that was the point that Serkant and Ken were doing, not in the case of a single component restart.
So the point that Ken made, I think that really should be thought through, right? Because the same flows are being persisted at ONOS as well as in VOLTHA core. You don't need persisted flows in 2 places, right?
Yeah, that's my point in the sense of there are parts of the system that we're persisting today just out of persisting things. Do we really need to persist everything? Like maybe the basic stuff, like a device, the ports on those devices may be persistent, but do we need to persist the flows associated with them if we can, if on the restart we can get those flows from others?
Andrea, does Atomics uses the disk persistency, you mean?
We do have
memory.
We do have capability in Atomics to use disk persistency. As it was the case for etcd, we never turned it on, so we never tried it, but it has the capability to do so.
Oh, Ken, a quick question. When you say persisted, do you mean written to etcd or persisted to disk?
Well, persistent to disk. It's if there's the option of one component, because currently the persistent to, at least when we're not using Bitnami, there was this option to write in memory only, but that's for etcd as a whole. If there was that kind of option where per component we could determine whether we can write to etcd or not, then that could be helpful, and per type. But overall, it's more like, do we need to persist everything? Well, it's
So maybe I understood that point wrong, because someone then might ask, is there a need to persist? Is there a need for etcd at all? For example, in the vOLTHA adapter, you just store them in local maps, and if it fails, you just get them from ONOS, which was what I think Amit was actually bringing up.
Yes.
No, Andres, so the vOLTHA adapter is generating some flow IDs, right? So I think that needs to be persisted or stored in etcd, right? Because it can't get those from anywhere else. But the flows in vCore, they can be got back from ONOS.
Okay, maybe the vOLTHA adapter was not the right choice, but yes, for example, the flows in the RW core.
Yeah.
If those can be totally get from ONOS again, is there a need to actually use etcd in the core at all? Just
etcd,
in a map.
the core needs etcd because we need to save their ONU devices, the OLT devices. So there are information that are required. Like, for example, if an adapter goes down, then it comes back up. There's some reconciliation that happens, so we get the data from the core.
But maybe not all the data that we store at the moment. We could store only a selected section of the stuff that we store right now.
Yeah, that's a point. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like maybe we don't need to store flows. Maybe we don't need to store some other things that we're storing today. The only thing that the only argument I have is against that at this time is we are not seeing a direct impact storing those data in the core itself. It maybe have an indirect impact in the sense of all those writing to the etcds, making the etcd even busier, so that it's affecting other components that result in timeouts from those other components. There may be an indirect impact, but direct impact, I'm not saying that, because most of the timeout that we are seeing is when the core send a flow add to the adapter, and then that taking longer than 10 seconds to respond. But I think it's maybe worthwhile to try it out, to have at least flows, not persistent. I know that there would be an impact the moment of a restart of the core, but how much of the impact, I don't know. It needs to be tried out.
But by the way, I'm sorry, I am not suggesting writing some part of the data to etcd. I'm not writing some part of the data to the etcd. I'm just saying that should we store on the disk? Because if we lost all of the nodes at the same time, then yes, we can go back from a etcd backup. But after that, because we also would lose ONOS at the same time, ONOS doesn't know the flows. So we also need a mechanism to replay the flows in vOLTHA to the ONOS. If we don't use the atomic persistence in disk. I'm not saying that.
Oh, there is a flag. I mean, I would agree that if we lose the cluster, there's really no point in having it persisted. Although I have to say that there is a flag in ONOS that allows you to import existing rules from a switch. Having said that, it doesn't mean that we could regain the knowledge of the program subscribers, for example. That's not really something that we could regain. Yeah, I mean, you have a point, Serpent. You have a point. If we lose the cluster, we lose the cluster, and that's kind of it.
If you lose a cluster and you bring it back, then you have to start really from scratch, like provisioning the device and everything. It's are those data stored somewhere?
Well, that would be the NEM layer use. If it sees that the whole thing goes down, it might do operations in a way that it will reprovision all the subscribers, recreate the OLTs and things like that.
Yeah, so basically the point is, given that it takes like 10 minutes to bring up everything from scratch, what's the point of persisting things in the stack and not at a layer above? Did I get that right?
That is precisely the point. Yep.
But the Bitnami
that's
charts,
a wonderful question.
The Bitnami charts don't even have the option to not persist, right?
Yes, it doesn't have an option. By using the charts, we are giving it a memory file system. So it thinks that it is writing to the disk, but actually it is writing to the memory.
Yeah. So what Serpent is saying is that even though the chart does not allow it, there is an option in Kubernetes to effectively fake the disk to be just an in-memory storage. So what Serpent is saying is that maybe again, as the chart doesn't allow it, but we can fake the chart to think that we are actually persisting to disk while we're not.
I got that.
Well, and also the chart is not scripted in stone. If we decided that going in memory is the way to go, we can configure the
Override the chart.
Eh,
We can make a
we
pull
would have
request to the chart. We can find a different chart. There are solutions if we decide
Yeah,
that's the way to
there
go.
are solutions. Yeah, I agree too.
I think it's more we need to decide where do we want to go. Then we figure out how to get there.
Yeah, I'd be careful just writing to just memory as a disk space, because Kubernetes doesn't swap, and if you're using up resources, if you don't clean up your etcd keys, you might be consuming resources on the server, memory resources that aren't returned. So for performance testing, obviously that's not much of an issue, but for long-term operation, it could be an issue.
For 4,000 ONUs, I see that etcd uses at most 16 gigabytes of memory.
This would be something interesting to test on the soak pod, because we would have to look if we leave stuff behind, and as Chip was saying, if Kubernetes doesn't swap, that stuff might grow over time.
Yeah. Yeah, look, for a lot of my system tests, on the system test wind down, I make sure that all of my etcd artifacts are cleaned up. So you might want to make sure those tests are maybe added for other people too.
Okay, I think the TST can revisit this question whether etcd really needs to be persisted. But the ideas that have come out to use it more efficiently, they're not bad ideas, and they should help anyway, right? Whether or not we persist things. Would that be fair?
I think that's
I would
fair.
agree with that, Surf. Yes.
Yep.
So they are still worth investigating, and the TST can make a call later whether we go with what Sarkant was saying or not.
Yeah, I agree. It was just food for thought.
Okay, sounds good. Any other topic that you guys want to discuss?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah, totally. Happy Thanksgiving for everybody in the US. That's great. I always forget about it.
Everybody.
Yeah. And
Should
well,
we use
thanks a
these
lot.
3 minutes to share turkey recipes?
Okay.
I don't have any, but if anybody wants, start a Google Doc and put some in. Thanks, everybody.
YouTube is my best friend for that.
Oh yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody, and I'll talk to you next time. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.